Video 2, continuing the entry from the October the 7th, 1928. My Jesus, I am here near the tabernacle of love. Note that one. We're going to come back to, Luisa is going to come back to that. From that adored little door, which I have the honor to gaze at, I feel your divine fibers, your heart palpitating, emitting flames and rays of endless light at each heartbeat. And in those flames, I hear your moans, your sighs, your incessant supplications, and your repeated sobs, for you want to make your will known, to give its life to all. And I feel myself being consumed with you, and repeating what you do. There's the rounds, repeating what the Father does, the Son does, the Spirit does. In the Gospel of John, it's chapter 5 and chapter 8, Jesus talks about he only does what he sees the Father doing, and he only says what the Father tells him to say. So we are repeating God's life in our thoughts, words, and acts. And that life is fire. When you next read through the diaries, notice how every knowledge is heat and light, and the flame of the divine will and the flame of the little flame of our will. Therefore I pray you, while you gaze at me from within the tabernacle, and I gaze at you from within my bed, to strengthen my weakness, that I may make the sacrifice of continuing to write. So notice the phrase, can strengthen my weakness, and 2 Corinthians, I think it's 11, where Paul says his power is made perfect in weakness. That's where we have to have good self-knowledge and come to know our weakness, so that we can ask Jesus to strengthen that weakness, because that's where his power is made perfect. Now, in order to be able to say what Jesus told me, I have to make a brief mention that here in Corato, a house has been founded, this actual house where I am broadcasting from here now, or recording from, which was wanted and started by the venerable memory of Father Canonical Annibale de Maria de Francia, and which his children, faithful to the will of their founder, have executed and given the name of House of the Divine Will, as the venerable Father wanted. And he wanted me to enter this house, and on the first day of its opening, by their goodness, his sons and daughters, the Reverend Mothers, came to take me and brought me into a room which is such that, as the door of this room is opened, I can see the tabernacle. Now, the previous video, or one of the previous videos, I filmed from the church, the sanctuary area. That sanctuary area was Luisa's bedroom, and the door could be opened, and the place where I was stood was the chapel, where the masses were said for Luisa for about 8 years, from 1928 onwards. Excuse me. I can listen to Holy Mass. I am just under the gazes of my Jesus in the sacrament. Oh, how happy I feel that from now on, if Jesus wants me to continue to write, I will write, always keeping one eye on the tabernacle and the other on the paper I write on. Therefore I pray you, my love, to assist me and to give me the strength to make the sacrifice that you yourself want. Just to want to suggest one thing, folks. From volume 25 onwards, bear this in mind. From that volume onwards, Luisa is writing with one eye on the tabernacle and the other on the paper. And I kind of wonder if there are things in those volumes that we need to pay particular attention to, because she was in looking at the tabernacle as she was writing. Now, I don't know. I haven't really studied those volumes with that in mind. I've read them a couple of times, but not with that in mind. So it might be that there's going to be some very interesting teachings to be drawn from those particular volumes. So as this house was about to be opened, one could see people, nuns, little girls, people coming and going, all in motion. I felt all impressed, and my sweet Jesus, once again, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, this group of people whom you see all in motion for the opening of the house of my divine will is symbolic of that group of people when I wanted to be born in Bethlehem. And the shepherds were coming and going to visit me, a little baby. This pointed out to all the certainty of my birth. In the same way, this group of people, all in motion, points out the rebirth, the kingdom of my divine will. Look at how all of heaven echoes my birth, when the angels celebrating it announced me to the shepherds, and putting them in motion made them keep coming to me, and I recognized in them the first fruits of the kingdom of my redemption. So now in this group of people, of little girls and nuns, I recognize the beginning of the kingdom of my divine will. Notice there's children here. Children are very receptive to the kingdom of the divine will. Oh, how my heart exults and rejoices, and all of heaven makes feast. Just as the angels celebrated my birth, so do they celebrate the beginning of the rebirth of my fiat in the midst of creatures. But look at how my birth was more neglected, more poor. I had not even one priest near me, but only poor shepherds. On the other hand, at the beginning of my volition, there is not only a group of nuns and little girls from out of town, and the people rushing up to celebrate the opening, but there is an archbishop and priests representing my church. This is symbol and announcement to all that the kingdom of my divine volition will be formed with more magnificence, with greater pomp and splendour than the very kingdom of my redemption, and everyone, kings and princes, bishops and priests and peoples, will know the kingdom of my fiat and possess it. Therefore you too celebrate this day in which my sighs and sacrifices and yours, to make my divine will known, see the first dawn and hope for the sun of my divine fiat to soon rise. Written in 1928, that's nearly 100 years ago. And that light, that sun is rising in our midst. Now I just want to draw out a caution here for you folks. Kings and princes, bishops and priests and peoples, the church, Jesus calls it my church. Be careful of a deception, folks, that Satan will try to draw you away from the church under the Holy Father. Don't be deceived, please. The Holy Father is the one who we have to be obedient to. He's the one who's been appointed by God himself to be the spiritual leader of the church on earth. And he's the one whose teaching, when he pronounces it in a certain way, is infallible. He's the one who we should listen to and we should be obedient to. At the moment, there are bishops and priests who are slandering and criticizing and separating themselves from the Holy Father. Don't go with them. You will be separated from the kingdom of the divine will. You'll be separated from the sacraments. Stick with the Holy Father. You might be confused by some of the things said because you live in times of confusion. That's what Jesus himself said. These are times of confusion. And there will be bad reports, bad translations. My daughter has shown me that. She's shown me how the media mistranslates the words of the Holy Father. And so my lesson here is, when the Israelites were in the desert, Moses leading them, there was constant rebellion against Moses, against his leadership. There is constant rebellion against the appointed leader of the church from the time of the early church. Straight away, you have the Gnostics, the Arians, and you've got all the Nestorians, all the way through. There's always been constant rebellion against the truth. Stick with the Holy Father, and you will be safe. Do not be deceived into following bishops and priests who are in rebellion against him. Don't do it. Don't listen to people who rebel against him. Don't do it. It will draw you away from the kingdom of the divine will, and it will cause great disturbance in your interior life. Peace is only found in the one Holy Catholic Church. That's what Padre Pio said. And he would take no criticism of the Pope when he was forced to say Mass privately for years. He would take no criticism of the Holy Father. We should follow the examples of the saints. Don't follow the example of the rebels, folks. Stick with those who are in communion with the Holy Father and love him and pray for him. Next video coming in a minute.